How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of RimWorld. Hope you guys have been enjoying the series so far. If you guys have, you guys know what to do. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Consider subscribing. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me, leave those down below. And with that, let's get into today's episode. So, in today's episode, I want to kind of go over just a couple things. We've pretty much covered all the menus and things, covered some basics, and so now I think we need to start getting our colony going. So at the end of the last episode, we mentioned that every colonist has needs. Well, they don't like being in the dark, they don't like being in the cold, and they certainly don't like living in a big barracks, or rather a crappy barracks like this. So we're going to try to fix some of these things before their uh, optimism runs out. So what we're going to try to do is we're just going to pull up our architect. We're going to pull up structure. And because wood is fairly plentiful, we're going to use wood for now. Eventually, we're going to replace everything with stone, just so that it doesn't burn. But until we get some mining, we're just going to do this. So I do want to take a look at the fertility, just to make sure I don't build over any good ground. Doesn't look like there's any super great ground other than up here, but for now, we should be fine. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to set up. Let's see. The rooms I'm going to build for our colonists are going to be 5 by 5 interiors, so that means we need a 7 by 7 room like that. And then, so then we can just do that repeated. And then, of course, we're going to throw in a door here and here. And then from there, that allows us to have everything we want. Now, we could go larger. We could do an even-sized room, and then we could, of course, have that double bed. But another thing that I've seen that some people will do is you just make the room one longer, so you still maintain that odd for the door, so you get that aesthetic. But then now, because it's an even length, or it was an even length. Yes, okay, it was an even length. Then what you can do is you can put the double bed here along that wall. So if you have a single person, you can put it here, and then if you have a double, you can put it here on that side and still have plenty of room. So we have 3 colonists, so I'm going to make 3 rooms for them. And then eventually this will be part of like its own larger building. Probably a compound on this side. Now we're also going to want to set up a sort of prison. And I say prison, but more of just like a cell block. This I do want to make out of stone. And I know we have quite a lot of slate. Now we don't have slate blocks, right? We have raw slate, but we can't use this just yet. We don't have a crafting thing. So in order for us to be able to do that, we're going to need a crafting room. And I'll probably just reuse this temporarily. And I think if we're going to put most of our farms over here to the right, can we build... Let's see. Terrain, yes. So, in the event that you want to be able to build on things that look kind of sketchy, in this case, I want to build something here, but I can't. We could put bridges, but just note that you can't put really heavy structures and things. So, I'm going to just try to avoid having to build there altogether. And we are going to want some sort of cafeteria / storage area. So I think we'll put something here. Probably a 2 walkway. We'll say 10 by, let's see. So then that gives us an interior of 9. That's fine. Well, that gives, apparently I can't count. Go there, like that. Okay. And so then this will be where we store our food and have more or less a giant refrigerator for our crops. However, currently, it won't be a refrigerator because there's no coolant, and we're also going to need a few things. So, I think eventually this section here will get replaced, and we'll put a like cafeteria or something there. And so what I want to do is set up an airlock. The reason for an airlock is if you've ever been in like a commercial freezer, or even been to like a warehouse like Costco, where if you go into their walk-in, they kind of have those plastic drape down things. It just helps keep the cold air in, and the same principle is going to apply here. So because we have, in this case, it's an even-sized room, so it's a little bit more difficult for us to try to get, but yeah, that's fine. Actually, I'm going to make it odd just for the sake of... Right. Okay, somehow I didn't make it odd. Okay. Yeah, okay, we're out here. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the center point, and we're going to do something like this. And the same thing's going to be true up here. Like so. And then what we're going to do, we're going to put a wooden door here, a wooden door here, a wooden door here, and a wooden door here. So what this does is it basically creates an airlock. So when this outside door opens and a colonist is going in with food, they usually are going to stop here. And they're not going to wait necessarily for the store to close and then open the store. It's just due to the animations, they're going to walk in. The door will probably be about half open by the time they start to open this door. So realistically, all this cold air that will be in this room will only spill out into a single tile, which then allows us to effectively conserve on the amount of energy cost, because then we don't have to worry about these doors being open a lot and too much air getting out. Now, if we had just a single door, well, more of that cold air will leak out, and then you'll have to re-cool down this room. And especially if you have a lot of colonists coming in and out, this just helps cut that down. And of course, you can always set it so that way only the cooks are going in or only the farmers are going in. And just so that way you keep your colonist out of this. And we'll probably put some of the cooking in this corner as well, just so that way all the food is just in the fridge and they don't have to worry about like taking it out and into a kitchen. Or we might even decide to put like a small kitchen on the side here. We'll see how things work out there. Now, I also want to go ahead and zone this. Make sure we put a roof on the whole thing. And then, yeah, it's going to kind of have a bit of a connection, and same thing there. Awesome. The next thing I want to do is I also want to go structure. Or floors, not structure. And then we have some different flooring we can use. We can use concrete, which uses steel. We can use, again, different tiles if we had the bricks. And then just different flooring. And of course, fine sandstone tile, or in this case, fine any type of tile, is going to look a lot nicer for our people. But notice it requires 20 of that unit. We're going to just use wood flooring for now in the whole place. The same thing will be true for their rooms. It is going to use quite a lot of wood, but we should be fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and order the chopping of pretty much just a bunch of trees. Oh, let's go ahead and turn off that. Pretty much any tree that's in the vicinity I want to chop. Awesome. So now that we have that designed, I also want to go ahead and get some furniture made. I want to get another bed in each of these rooms. But I think what we'll end up doing is I'm not going to build the beds. I'm going to just move these, disassemble them, and reassemble them. So what I'll do is I'll place everything else we're going to want in these rooms, such as dressers. We are going to want standing lamps at some point, but I'm not going to place them just so we don't use our steel, but also so that way we're not going to have power right now. So what I'll do instead is throw a torch in each room. It will heat it, which is a concern, but I think for now we'll be fine. We're also going to go ahead and put in, I can't remember if the tables, I don't know. Sometimes I like to put items in the rooms that don't necessarily contribute to the overall aesthetics, and you can actually see, so currently it's not designated a room here. So if we click the bed, we can see what we can build. So we can build end table and dresser. And then of course we can determine the type, which is nice. We can also set what it is for. But overall, look, we can see what the barracks is. So this room is designated a barracks because there's more than one person living in here. It tells us its impressiveness is awful. They hate it. However, it has a lot of wealth because of all the items in here. So that works in our favor. It's average sized, so it's a positive value. Its beauty is ugly. They hate it. That's partially because we have dirt in the room, but also just due to how we have things. they're not the best quality, so it doesn't look good. And cleanliness, it's less than a point in terms of being a negative. So having people cleaning things constantly is a plus. So that should be enough for now. And then, let's see. I do want to get a stone cutter table. We don't have enough, so I'm gonna hold off on that. So we're gonna unpause. And then I do want to get some mining queued up as well. So let's go ahead and get this little bit so we can get some steel going. Cool. And then I think let's go ahead and start planning a little bit of some things while we're just waiting for trees to be chopped. So we know we can't build over here. And I do want to put the farming kind of over to our right. I think what we'll end up doing... Because right now, we're fairly open. We don't really have any defenses on the colony. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably... Let's see, 1, 2... do something like that. Because we're going to put another... Let's see. Yeah, another 10 by 10. So we'll put another amount there. That's fine. And then... Okay, so that will all eventually be field. Okay, so we'll bring a wall up, something like that. And something like that. We can't really build a wall over this area, so we're going to just try to avoid it altogether. Ooh, it's going to give us some problems right through here. So let's go ahead and just remove it to, like, there. Plan for the wall like that. Okay. Some might say this is a little bit too big of an area to have walled off to begin with, but we will manage. And the way the pathing works, we should be able to have a fairly nice like kill box, and we'll show that here in a little bit as we get our defenses a little bit more prepared. So that's kind of the plan for the wall. And then just some farming, and then this leaves this area over here for just extra buildings and stuff we'll need. So, what a kill box effectively is when we need our defenses, the way the pathing on the enemy works is, for the most part, most of the enemies look for an open path to effectively get to your colonist. And so, if we have just a long hallway, kind of like a maze, well, for the most part, they're all going to go through that and then go to your juicy colonists in your colony. However, there are a few raiders that they don't path that way. They just look for, okay, well, there's a wall between me and them. Wall goes bye-bye, I'm getting to your colonists. So those types of enemies you have to be a little bit more careful of. So if you try to rely solely on the fact that you have a massive wall around your base, there's a potentiality that they're just going to go right through it, in terms of like blowing it up or setting it on fire in the case of it being wood, and so on and so forth. So it is kind of a little bit important to make sure that you have some colonists ready to like float to any side in case there's a breakthrough. But for the most part, you're going to have the ability to set up effectively a main entrance full of turrets and angles and off angles. And of course, we'll go over those things when we get to it. I'm not a super expert in kill boxes, partially because I'm not going to say they're cheesing the game, because play the game the way you want to play it, because that's going to be the most fun for you. But as a person who somewhat likes to play games with a little bit of a role play mentality, I don't feel as though that would be very like actual design of a person or of a colony, if like you were in this colony. But of course, you do you. Play the game you want to play it, the way you want to play it, type scenario. So right now our colonists are sleeping. They have brought a few things inside. It looks like there's still some stuff that needs to be moved in. So let's go ahead and zone. We're just going to really zone this as a bigger stockpile. Because right now we just really, honestly, I'm just going to zone the whole room. Any available tile, just put stuff in. We're going to go ahead and turn it up to 3 speed just so that way we can kind of skip through the night a little bit. As you can see, a bunch of animals, even the wild ones, do have to sleep, so there are good times to hunt. Notice they need warm clothes, and we do need recreation, so let's go ahead and find something we can do. A good quick one is just horseshoes. It doesn't really take up any room, and it's a nice little recreation tool. Another good one is the chess table. It does require a little bit more wood, and you need some chairs, and so it's usually good to get the chess table, just so you have variety, because that is key in this game with the food, the recreation, and pretty much everything. Is your colonists are going to want variety in things. So if you just have one food source, or if you just have one like type of recreation, they're not going to be too happy, versus if you have a bunch of different things. So right now we're just chopping up the trees, getting the roofs planted. I do need to harvest anything that's in the zone, such as those heal roots, and then pretty sure that's just about it. I do want to haul anything that we can. So for instance, the scrap. Oh, we do need to claim some of these things, huh? Alright, so let's go ahead and claim, get that out of the way so we can claim these so we can move them. Awesome. So as you see, it looks like all our colonists are doing something. We're up here mining, which is good. We're down here, we're chopping the trees. Because the trees are going to be a big priority. We're going to need most of this wood. The silver and the steel don't deteriorate, which is good. However, these components do. So I want you to haul that as soon as you can, just so that it's inside. And then, of course, the money being left out is a problem. Just because if we get raided, that could be the very first thing that they take. Because when you get raided, it's usually because they want your stuff. Not necessarily to kill you, although some of the raiders that you'll eventually encounter might possibly want to like steal you because they might be slavers. Ooh, and our first visitor. So we're going to go ahead and pause just so we can see who this is. So a low-wage worker is visiting the colony. She is named, and of course they'll have different names. Sometimes you might notice, like back when I was mentioning in episode 0 about how there might be a relationship that occurs or exists between two colonists, or it could exist between your colonists and somebody who doesn't currently exist in the game. Well, this could be one of those people that show up. And it looks like she wants to trade, so we can go ahead and jump to their location. So the colonists are going to basically come to your I say colonists. Traders are going to come to your colony, and sometimes they might just be a lone person like this, or they might be a massive caravan. The caravans are going to carry a lot more stuff, and so they're going to be a little bit more worthwhile. But a single person like this isn't going to do a whole lot. So I want you to trade. Usually you're going to want your best social person because you'll get a little bit better prices. So we can see that Negotiator Horn has a plus 3%, which is pretty good for us. I mean, I didn't see if we had anybody better, but we're probably not going to buy anything from them. So this is a fairly standard trading screen. It tells us how much of this item she has to trade. It tells us what her prices are. And then, of course, it tells us what we have and what we have in terms of pricing. Now notice she only has 62 silver, so if we sold her a bunch of things, at most we can only get 62. Although the trade value would allow us to, we could, instead of getting silver, we could decide, well, we want to use like trade items directly. And it just uses the silver value and all those things. We could buy more pre-packaged survival meals. We have a fair amount, and those are quite expensive. I don't really want to spend that. We're not really using components, and she only has one. Medicine, again, we're fine on. I really don't recommend buying anything from the first trader you get unless there's just a crazy deal that you just really can't pass up. Then in which case, by all means. Let's also go ahead and plan out a wind turbine. So one thing I've seen people do is they'll use the wind turbine in their fields like this. Because notice those boxes have to be clear of buildings. So I couldn't put it here, it won't operate. But I could put it, say, in the middle of a crop field, and it would operate. So something I see people do is they'll do, say, like this, right? And then, but notice, that's going to be in the middle of our thing, you're probably wondering. And sure, it would. So we're going to get rid of that line. So that means we need to add 2 lines here. So it works. And then, of course, we can add more as well. And we're going to need power because we need... where is it? Temperature. We need a cooler. We could use a passive cooler. A passive cooler doesn't require any power. However, you're not going to be able to refrigerate things with it. So it's enough to help keep your colonists cool. So if you're in the desert, but it's not enough to refrigerate your food. However, a cooler is. And it's just effectively a heat exchanger. We're going to go ahead and just put it on this side because it will be the shortest distance. And it will, of course, replace a wall. We should be able to get away with one cooler, but if we need two, we can, of course, always put it in. Vents work by equalizing the air between areas. But because we're going to be building more of a compound with separate buildings, the vents aren't going to be as useful for us unless, of course, we decided to, say, put, like, one AC on this building of rooms and then put vents between them, because then we could effectively cool 3 rooms with one cooler. So that could be something you could look at doing. Ooh, a mad rat. So a local rat has gone mad, attacking everybody it sees. So basically it has rabies. So let's go ahead and jump to its location. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and press R after selecting all my colonists, and that puts them into combat mode, basically. They stop what they're doing, and now they're under your direct command. And we're going to go ahead and tell them to go over here. So now time is going to slow down to speed 1, and we're going to engage them. Okay, so a medical treatment is needed. So Four Eyes did get injured. So let's see, what did she get injured with? Just a bruise. And then it tells you basically what's happening. A bruise, pain level went up by 4%. She needs tending, but she's not going to die or anything. She should be fine. So in this case, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go like that. And then any of our doctors, so of course we can romance. She does need tending. Who do we have as doctor? Horn as doctor. So it could just be something as simple as like resting, or it could be as serious as needs surgery, bleeding out now, right? And so now that she's resting, she'll get, you see those little blue plus marks? That means she's effectively healing. And notice when Horn went and patched her up automatically, she's bandaged. And bandages will last for a certain percentage of time. They'll degrade, and then you'll have to re-bandage to continue the healing process. Bed rest helps a little bit, but it is not kind of your ultimate solution. Ooh, perfect. And we also saw that construction was butchered. Or botched, not butchered. Botched just basically tells us, hey, this person's not great at construction. They wasted resources. So having general laborers work on wooden structures is fine when they botch it. However, if you have somebody who's terrible at constructing, working on, say, AC units or turbines or just other expensive items, it's not great because you end up wasting a lot of resources that way. Cool. So now that we have kind of a rough area, I'm going to go ahead and pause really quick. We're going to throw a stockpile zone in. Now, I want to make sure that I don't put a stockpile in the doorway, because if you put something in the doorway, it will prevent items from being able to be moved in here. Well, okay. It won't prevent items from being moved in here. It will hold the doorway open. So what we want to do is we want to shrink zones. So press Y and go like that. Now, a couple other things to note is we could put all our items in here like they currently are. Or if we add, where are they? Here. We can use item shelves. These allow us to store things. The way shelving works is they act independently of the zone they're in. So I'm going to put 2 right here. And you'll see why here in a little bit. It helps to organize rooms. So used to, before shelves were a thing, you would have zones like this and have all your items in a room. However, with shelves, what we can do is we can go ahead and decide, okay, well, we don't want apparel. We don't want weapons. We don't want items. However, raw resources, we don't want stone blocks. However, plant matter, we could have specific things on if we wanted that in here. We're not going to be growing any of that, so it doesn't really matter. The other things, if we go manufactured, of course, we can say, well, we want, say, all our drugs in here. So that could be useful if this was our hospital room. So that way the drugs would be immediately accessible to the doctors. However, we're also not going to have those. But thankfully, they separate the raw food and things. So I want any of the food to be stored in here. And then over here, in this one, storage, I don't want any food in here. No food. I want food to stay in the refrigerated room. And I also don't want rotten food. No rotten food. We're going to copy these settings. We're going to paste these settings. And we're also going to paste the settings there as well. So now any raw food will get stored in this building. Now you're probably wondering, but then why do we need such a big room if we have these shelves? Well, the reason for a larger room is because I'm also going to put some other things in here as well. I like to double the refrigeration also for the cooking area. So I'll probably put the stoves in here and then just some other things, just so that way the cooks don't have to go nearly as far. It is a little bit of a larger area to cool and things, but as your colony grows, it's better to have a large stockpile of food. Plus, if I ever decide to have like a butchery, I might decide to section this cooler off and put the butchering on the bottom part. So I usually just preemptively build a fairly large cooler to begin with, just for stockpiling purposes. Cool, so now we're starting to get the build rooms built. However, that's probably, I think, where we're going to call it for today. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good setup for today. So we kind of got our wall roughly decided on. We're starting to get bedrooms set up so that the colonists have somewhere that they can rest their head and not feel completely crappy about. And then, yeah. So anyway, we have now survived long enough, and it looks like we've been here for a while. Horn thinks you should give your faction a name. What should our faction be called? We could randomize it, right? So we could decide, okay, well, we're going to call it something. And then we also think we need to give our settlement a name. So not only does our faction have a name, we need to decide what the settlement should be called. Now, let's see. Blackjackville. I like that. That's a great settlement name. Let's see. Usually these can get pretty wild. Like, some of these are really long. These are crazy, some of these names. The Covenant. Let's see. You do Pax Romana. I don't know, maybe we'll save that for like a Roman playthrough or something. Let's call this one. What should our faction be called? Let's go New Kids in Town. And they live in Blackjackville. There we go. So our faction is now known as New Kids in Town, and this community is known as Blackjackville. There will be no gambling here. Alright, well, I think that's what we're going to call it. And then lastly, of course, we finished off with having this setup of our cooler, which will also be where we do butchering and probably the cooking and all those things here. And then we'll probably put a cafeteria, I think, here in the middle. Once the bedrooms are moved, these will move up here. We'll probably build a storage room somewhere over here. And then these items will go there, and then this building will get tore down and repurposed. And lastly, it looks like we have a psychic drone, which basically makes everybody's mood who's a male feels a little bit worse for a few days, and it tells us how long it's here for. It looks like it started the 5th of April, May, and it lasted 0.3 hours. Or that's how long it's lasted. So yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you guys did, you guys know what to do. Smash that like button. If you haven't already, consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. And other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Peace out.